Hello, everyone. Welcome to IGeLU and ELUNA joint linked open data community of practice working group community meeting. So we're very happy today. We'll have a very exciting 3 different presentations, lightning talks. Before we start, I just want to quickly talk about what our group, working group does, and then very quickly transition to the presentations. So let me first share my screen and find the slides and view. Okay, so here is just what I said, and here is overview. So after introduction will be lightning talks. We're hoping at the end there will be plenty time for questions and answers. So our group is joined group, and so which means we have members come from both IGeLU users group as well as ELUNA. So today's meeting is our second one. We had one in January, and our meeting has been always very productive, mainly because we have excellent presentations as well as your involvement and your engagement. So thank you so much for coming. And most of what our group is doing is helping Libris to develop linked data features and also organizing those meetings to get your feedback or provide opportunities for you to learn from other community members. And so more detail about what our group doing, I will be presenting at upcoming ELUNA conference in San Francisco. So after that, we will post the slides in terms of my meeting, and you will learn more of what we have been doing. But I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your support. And so for now, I'm going to turn to Catherine Grove, who is going to facilitate today's meeting.
Thanks. Thank you, Shelley. Hi, everybody. I'm Catherine Grove. I am the head of metadata services at Northwestern University Libraries, and I am also one of the co-chairs of the Alma working group, which I serve on a liaison to the linked data group. So I'll give introductions of all of our presenters from the start, and then we'll dive in. So our first presentation you'll be hearing shortly from Sai Dang and Lee Dotson. Sai is the metadata librarian and associate librarian at the University of Central Florida. She served on many ALA interest groups, including the ALA core cataloging and classification research, metadata, cataloging norms and technical services workflow efficiency groups. She's been on SAC and the Committee on Faceted Vocabularies and the Wikidata Wiki Project Chinese Culture and Heritage Group. University of Central Florida recently migrated to Alma and Primo, and she's been actively involved in the migration and post-migration process. She's also been working with faculty members in digital humanities and history to incorporate linked data to research data sets in Alma. Lee Dotson is the Digital Initiatives Librarian and Interim Department Head for Technology Solutions and Digital Initiatives at the John C. Hitt Library at the University of Central Florida. She is the manager of UCF's Digital Institutional Repository called STARS, and has had the opportunity to work with repositories at UCF since the libraries began digitization efforts in 1999. She works a lot with students and faculty to support data management efforts and a variety of digital scholarly projects. So that'll be your first one. After we hear from them, we'll hear from Heather Pretty. Heather Pretty is a cataloging librarian at Memorial University of Newfoundland. She is a member of the Libris Alma Authorities Focus Group and the liaison from that group to the Libris Linked Open Data Community of Practice. Oh, Shelley, can you go to the next slide? Sorry. So Heather will be talking about using the BIBFRAME tab in Alma's record view. And then our third presentation today will be from Greta Heng, Tricia Lampron, and MJ Han. Greta is the Cataloging and Metadata Strategies Librarian at San Diego State University. Her research interests include linked open data, semantic web, identity management, and information search behavior. Patricia is a Cataloging and Metadata Librarian at the University of California, Irvine, and her research interests include linked data and the semantic web, as well as DEIA efforts and practices in cataloging and library metadata. MJ Han is a professor and metadata librarian and the head of acquisitions and cataloging services at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Her research interests include interoperability of metadata, relationships between collection, description, and item level metadata, issues on bibliographic control in the digital library environment, and the semantic web and linked data. So this is our excellent group of panelists today. So thank you all also for agreeing to present today. We're very excited to hear from you. If people have questions, please submit them through the Q&A function down at the bottom. We will have somebody monitoring the chat, but that can be more for side conversations, or if you have technical issues, you can put those into the Q&A. But for questions for our panelists, please put those into the Q&A, and we'll take care of those at the end. Again, as Shelley said, this is being recorded, and we will also be able to send out a recording for this afterwards. So I think with that, we can go ahead and get started. I will turn it over to Sai and Lee. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that introduction, Catherine. Appreciate it. Are we ready to go, Sai, or did you want to try to? Almost.
You can see the slides, right?
We're seeing the PowerPoint. We can go from here if you want. And go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk about, as Catherine mentioned, adding linked open data to a digital humanities collection in Alma. We can go to the next slide. So for this linked data project, Sai was the one responsible for the linked data. So she, back one. There we go. Used Wikidata for that. So she'll be talking a lot about the free, open, and multilingual knowledge base that she was able to use to incorporate that through Wikidata. We also did a lot of collaboration with Digital Humanities through one specific collection that they were interested in adding linked open data for. And then Sai integrated the LOD vocabularies into the bibliographic records in Alma. We've also worked to integrate those into our digital collections and our repository, which is using Digital Commons. Next. So our collaboration with Digital Humanities is really one of the best things about this whole project, because Sai decided she wanted to add some linked open data to this project. At the same time, the faculty working on a project in Digital Humanities was very interested in linked open data. So it was perfect timing and a great project to partner with them on. We try to stay as involved with our Center for Humanities and Digital Research as much as possible. There are 3 librarians who actually are very involved in that effort, and it's a very interdisciplinary effort across campus. So we're able to reach a lot of faculty doing a lot of very interesting projects that way. Next. In particular, faculty member Dr. Rose Byler, she has a collection that she had started for digitization and wanted to incorporate linked open data into some correspondence, the Pemberton Papers collection. So she reached out to us and asked about going ahead and could we partner with her on this project. Next. So the Print Migration Network is what we have started with. Print stands for People, Religion, Information Networks, and Travel. And it is a collection of handwritten letters and transcripts. And she is tracking the migration of a particular group of people through this network. So it involves building a platform and a website that allows for transcriptions. They're using our institutional repository for storage of those files, as well as their research publications. The letters are uploaded as PDFs, and then as the transcriptions come along, we also upload those as well. So the goal here is to build a portal for the print collection for research and create the metadata and linked open data for the people and places in all 2,700 letters. We're not quite there yet, and also provide for some crowdsourcing of transcription of the letters. Next. So this is how we currently have it uploaded in our repository. The letters are uploaded individually, just as a submission in the repository. Right now we have, I think, 464 letters that they have scanned, and they have various resolutions so that they can share those out with researchers and with people doing the transcription work as well. Next. And then we have some custom metadata fields that you see here on the left. So we're able to add the sender place, the original repository, some different identification numbers, some really good rich metadata. But the most important part for this conversation is on the right side of the screen, and those are our linked data fields. So Digital Commons does not support linked open data at this time, but what we are able to do is capture that information so that when and if that feature comes along, we'll be able to make good use of it as soon as possible. So Sai has been working to add these links into the records as she works through them. And then she'll tell you more about that. Next. But just so you can see what it looks like as she's talking through that, on the left side there is what one of those handwritten letters look like. And then on the right side is one of the transcriptions. It's all you.
Okay, thank you, Ni. Ni just mentioned the permanent correspondence collection, and it is part of the print collection we host for our digital humanities folks. Because creating like name authority data and getting it added to the national database can be quite complicated. We started to create entries for people in collections in the open linked data platform Wikidata a few years ago. So in working with the permanent correspondence, I created Wikidata entries for people in the collection and added the links to our IR records in Dublin Core format, as well as our bibliographic records in MARC format. So Wikidata platform can illustrate and present linked data. So these graphs represent people in the collection, data model for one person, family relationships, burial places, and timeline for people in the collection. At the same time, we contributed some name authority records to NACO for the collection, and those records are included in the LC Linked Data Service website. Both the Wikidata URI and the LC Linked Data URI for person entities in the collection have been added to our Digital Commons based IR, as Ni mentioned. So the Wikidata URIs have also been added to our MARC records in Alma. So person entities were added to 100 author or 700 correspondent. The links are coded using subfield 1. The Library of Congress names and subjects are added to 600. Fast headings are added to 650 or 651, second indicator 7. So if it is a place, geo names, URIs can also be added, such as Lancashire, England. So LC subjects are added to 650, subfield 0, and the genre headings are added to 655, 7, and they are automatically linked by the system. So this slide listed the guidelines from PCC in formulating URIs and working with linked data. Both documents include different types of URIs and many examples. Linked data in the record can be accessed via the 3 dots drop-down menu in the search results in Alma. So this shows a list of linked data values for the record of Finis Pemberton's letter to Ralph Pemberton, September 12, 1680. So in this record, vocabularies displaying as linked data include LC vocabularies such as LC name or authority file, LC subject heading, via fast, wiki data, etc. But geonames, they don't display here yet. For LOD display in Primo, right now we can only view the URIs in the record source. Ex Libris info card or author card is still under development. So this slide mentions configuring linked data integration profile and Alma publishing profile. You need to be a general system administrator to configure this. So these are the challenges. Okay, so the challenges in working with linked data in Alma and Primo, like LOD display is still in testing stage. The public services people and discovery librarians, they have concerns on what will happen once we turn it on. And meanwhile, LD integration cannot be tested in sandbox. And also you may not have the rights to set things up. So this is just the concluding slide. Some thoughts and reflections on LOD can be integrated into library system to enrich information, break down data silos. Wikidata provides a no-barrier platform for libraries to adopt linked data, and the Wikidata entries can be incorporated into the library system. Info card for Primo can be developed to illustrate entities such as people, space, time, and the relationships like knowledge graphs to improve users' discovery experiences. So librarians here at UCF will continue to explore linked data, Wikidata, and their relationship with the LS, with colleagues in digital humanities, history, and other disciplines, and do whatever we can to move forward. So thank you. This is just some acknowledgements. Thank you very much, including our Xiaoni and Li Hongzhu and Greta. We work together, for the Wiki project, Chinese culture and heritage group. Yeah. Thank you. I learned a lot from them. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Sai and Lee. So we'll do all the questions together at the end because we're hoping that people might have some shared questions or shared discussion. But if people have questions that come to mind immediately, please feel free to go ahead and put those in the Q&A now as you have it. And I will turn it over to Heather, who's going to talk about using the linked data tab in Alma.
Okay, can everyone hear me and see my screen?
I can hear you and I see yours. And yes, I can see your screen. You can
Okay.
see the Google thing. Yeah.
Great. So my name is Heather Pretty. I'm a cataloging librarian at Memorial University of Newfoundland in St. John's, Canada, and the Alma Authorities Focus Group liaison to the Linked Open Data Community of Practice Working Group. This presentation is based on training we did within our cataloging and metadata unit in April 2018 for staff and cataloging librarians unfamiliar with linked data and BIBFRAME, primarily to get them accustomed to viewing MARC metadata in BIBFRAME RDF XML format. Goals were kept to an introductory level with the intention that after the training, if someone was curious about how MARC metadata is handled in BIBFRAME, they would have familiarity with the tools to make a comparison. So once they know where to find linked data and the BIBFRAME view in Alma, what are the basics they need to know about the BIBFRAME description structure? Where are those elements in MARC and where can they anticipate finding them in the BIBFRAME view? And then what elements are unique to a MARC record and what elements are unique to a BIBFRAME record? So to see the linked data from the brief record view, click on the 3 dots for more actions and select linked data. This view helped our catalogers to become more accustomed to the idea of uniform resource identifiers and is a good place to start conversations about the RDF triple structure and real world objects such as Wikidata entities, which we would anticipate finding in the subfield 1 of a MARC field rather than the subfield 0. BIBFRAME RDF XML is available as a second tab in the record view screen. As described by Libris, quote, "The BIBFRAME tab displays the MARC records information converted on the fly to the BIBFRAME display. You can copy and paste this information for your purposes. Note that the information displayed here is not saved in Alma and may change from one viewing to the next. Conveniently, this means that a cataloger can view metadata in the MARC record and then open the BIBFRAME view and use the browser Control-F feature to find where that metadata is situated within the BIBFRAME RDF XML. It is a straightforward method to compare MARC and BIBFRAME. In this case, the title, "The Fighting Newfoundlander," was found in the BIBFRAME view 3 times, once related to the work level and twice related to the instance level. Displayed here is the beginning of the RDF XML and a snip from the second occurrence at the instance level. So before we jump into some comparisons of MARC and BIBFRAME metadata, we should just note that there are 3 types of metadata that we're looking at: structural, administrative, and descriptive. So examples of MARC and BIBFRAME structural and administrative metadata are found in the leader and control fields in MARC and the XML specifications and the BF admin metadata in BIBFRAME. Highlighted are the MARC 005 field for the date and time of the latest transaction and the generation date for the BIBFRAME view. The majority of crossover one would expect between MARC and BIBFRAME is in the descriptive metadata. So the next few slides will show some example comparisons between MARC and BIBFRAME based on BIBFRAME's work, instance, and item levels. At the work level, if we look at a corporate body subject field from the MARC record, it is easy to see how this metadata is reformatted in BIBFRAME. You can see that the start and the end of the subject information pertaining to this corporate body subject. You can see that all the field and subfield metadata were brought over directly from the MARC record, and that the field has been extended with URIs in subfield zeros for the LC name authority and the VIAF resource, and that the URIs in those 2 subfield zeros have been further coded to function as linked data. Here again is the Alma linked data for the Fighting Newfoundlander. You can see that both URIs from the previous slide have been mapped to DCT subject. This is an example of instance level publication information and an example of item level information. So this is an electronic locator link to a scanned copy of the full text of the Fighting Newfoundlander and Memorial University's Digital Archives Initiative. A comparison of MARC and BIBFRAME and Alma also brings up some questions and curiosities. How will local fields be handled in BIBFRAME? There are 4 local notes in the MARC record related to provenance, but none can be found in a search of the BIBFRAME view. Similarly, none of the 9XX fields from this record made their way from MARC to BIBFRAME. Another question pertains to the manual entry of the subfield 0 and subfield 1 within the MARC record. As seen earlier, the MARC to BIBFRAME converter added 2 URIs to the 610 string in the BIBFRAME view and coded them as linked data. However, the subfield 1 Wikidata real-world object was added within the MARC record, but was not then coded as linked data as part of the MARC to BIBFRAME conversion. A larger concern is partially matched subject headings. In the metadata editor from the half binocular, it is apparent that the subject string only partially matches to an established LC subject. This is confirmed by the LC linked data service that the URI matches only to the subfield A, World War 1914 to 1918. However, both the Alma linked data and the BIBFRAME view subject information indicate that the URI matches to the full subject string. So if this partially matched subject string is presented out of context of the MARC record, it will appear this resource is about World War I on a broad level and not about Newfoundland and Labrador's regimental history specifically. In April 2022, at the Linked Open Data Community of Practice Town Hall meeting, Greta Heng and Laura Ackerman gave an excellent summary of issues surrounding the subfields 0 and 1, as well as raising concern about partial matches for subject headings and the suggestion to only add URIs if available for the whole subject string, whole subject heading, I should say. Considering the linked open data functionalities listed in the 2023 to 2024 Alma roadmap, these are certainly topics for which we will want to continue the discussion within our community of practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. That was great. Thank you for the questions coming in. Please continue and we'll get to them after our next presentation. So I will go ahead and turn this over to Greta, Tricia, and MJ.
Hello everyone, I'm Greta Heng at San Diego State University. I'm presenting with Tricia Lampra from University of California, Irvine, and MJ Han from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. In this presentation, we'll focus on the design consideration for a linked data editor in Alma. Although we understand that it may take some time before Libris develops such an editor, we believe it's crucial for catalogers and metadata professionals to think ahead and voice our needs and concerns when it comes to designing the editor. Alma does not have a built-in linked data editor, but it does offer some linked data features. If a linked data editor was added to Alma in the future, we have some questions about the design logic and practical concerns. We'll start with those questions and give an overview of what linked data features that Alma has that can be adopted in the linked data editor and what is lacking. Then we'll compare two linked data editors and what the future linked data editors in Alma can learn from. In the end, we'll summarize the things that we've learned. First question we have is, why does Alma need a linked data editor? Currently, we mainly use Alma's metadata editor for reviewing records and making minor changes. However, when there are problems with the BIP records, we often have to go to OCLC connection to make changes and then import them into Alma. Alma is not currently a place for creating original records. Will it be different when Alma has a linked data editor? And it raises questions about Alma's roles in creating and sharing linked data. Will we have one place to create and use linked data in Alma? What kind of functions would it need to enable catalogers to create linked data easily and efficiently as we can do with OCLC connection for MARC records? Will Alma become a database for locally created linked data? The transition from a traditional MARC cataloging environment to a linked data environment would be very challenging. The cataloging workflow will be very different with the linked data editor. How are we going to use them on them? Will we be creating truly linked data in the editor, or it will just be records with some URIs? These are some of the questions that we need to consider when thinking about Alma's role in the transition to a linked data environment. Looking at the positive side, there are some features in Alma that can be leveraged in the development of linked data editor. However, we also need to critically analyze and identify the key functions that are currently lacking in Alma. One function we found that might be useful is find matches. While we couldn't successfully utilize this function in our attempts, according to Libris documentation for find matches, Alma's metadata editor has the capability to display records that contain duplicate authority headings when editing an authority record. It can also search for matches of bibliographic records in the local catalog or community zone. Unfortunately, the picture from the documentation is a bit blurry, but it appears to show that the find matches function has successfully identified an existing authority record for the name Justin Abbott in the local catalog. This feature could potentially be used to add URIs for authorities by leveraging the URIs in the matching records within the linked data editor. Alma Refine is another function that holds great potentials for adding authority links in a future linked data editor. This feature is designed to reconcile strings with authority records from external sources. One can choose a set of records, the records in display, and selected records to reconcile against authorities in getting vocabularies, Wikidata, geonames, GND, BNF, and SUDOC. Alma also allows users to convert and publish metadata in linked data. It can enrich the records with 11 authority URIs when applicable, including LCSH, VF, and medical subject headings. Alma can convert MARC records to linked data outputs, including JSON-LD, BIBFRAME as XML, and RDA-RDF. The converted records can be viewed and downloaded either by title or in bulk. In addition, Alma's info card is an upcoming discovery tool built upon URI enhancement, which will dynamically search for authority information and provide basic information about authorities for users. However, these features have some limitations and may not be sufficient for a fully functional linked data editor. For instance, all three of us attempted to use the find matches function, but received no matches found error, even for well-known authors and authors with existing records in our local catalog. It might be our configuration issue, but a step-to-step configuration instruction would be more helpful for users to take advantage of this function. We have some suggestions for improving Alma Refine. Currently, it appears to only use strings to search for matches from linked data sources, which can lead to issues with disambiguation. The lack of additional information beyond the name label of the authorities makes it difficult to check and verify names. For example, the image shows that there are 3 people sharing the same name, Mobo, as the author of the book. Users can now decide which Mobo is the author. We believe that if Alma Refine can utilize entity types and match LCNNF identifiers in the record to limit the options, it will greatly improve the disambiguation process. Another suggestion we have for Alma Refine is the implementation of batch reconciliation. Users need to reconcile each record individually in the current version. Even for the resources with the same authors in a set, Alma Refine can now apply the same author URI to all records with one click. A more efficient approach is needed to allow users to reconcile multiple records at once. The lack of linked data features in the current metadata editor is a major concern. Even if the find matches function works well in the future linked data editor, it will only produce links if there is a controlled authority from the source record or the records in IZ or CZ. This presents a challenge when the authority has not been cataloged, as there will not be any links to match and cannot search for external linked data resources. To create linked data records in Alma's metadata editor, catalogers may need to use a separate tool or resource to reconcile their data with authority files, which is not desired. Tricia will then introduce the functions of other linked data editors and how they dealt with the challenges we mentioned.
Okay, so sorry, I'm going to talk about some functionality of the 2 prominent linked data editors and how that functionality can help bridge the gap to linked data creation in Alma. But I want to just talk a bit about how the Alma metadata editor currently allows catalogers to work with metadata in order to understand how the system differs from Marva and Sinopia. The metadata editor is essentially a data entry form that is MARC-based. In the Alma metadata editor, within the form, you see the actual MARC record, including all MARC coding. You're adding and working within the subfields, and it's basically what you see is what you get editor. The output record is almost exactly what you see when you're filling it out. The metadata editor does provide templates with predetermined fields based on what's being cataloged. However, again, it's very specific to MARC metadata. It has no plain language. You have to know the fields and rules or go out to another source to look them up, and there's no way to link outside linked data services. The 2 prominent linked data editors that we've looked at are Marva and Sinopia. Marva was designed to record metadata in BIBFRAME, and it outputs that BIBFRAME as RDF XML. Sinopia allows for properties across many different linked data ontologies, including BIBFRAME, RDA, and others. It exports the metadata in various representations like JSON and triples and turtle. In Marva, the profiles are built in. In Sinopia, templates are created by the user, and I'll talk a little more about this in the next few slides. Ease of navigation, we found that using both Marva and Sinopia was relatively complicated, and cataloging in them would require intensive training on things like relationship models like LRM or the BIBFRAME model, the new RDA toolkit, and how to use the system in general. These are both important aspects of a linked data editor because there's currently a lot of apprehension from the cataloging community to adopt BIBFRAME, linked data, or even just using the new RDA. So having a metadata editor that uses clear language and makes it easy to use would help build confidence in implementing these types of changes. So now I'll talk about a few functionalities of these two linked data editors that could be incorporated into the Alma metadata editor and help Alma become more effective at facilitating linked data. The terms profile and template seem to be used similarly when discussing metadata editors, and I want to talk a little about differences between Marva and Sinopia and how they use templates or profiles. As we know, the Alma metadata editor allows for the use of templates, which can set the basic metadata fields and subfields for a type of material. Marva has pre-designed profiles that record metadata in the BIBFRAME framework using the BIBFRAME model and properties. The profiles are material type based. For example, there's a profile for monographs, notated music, serials, and more. And certain properties are built in for each profile based on the needs of the material type. And sometimes the values are also pre-populated as well. For instance, in the monograph profile, which you can see here, it has content type automatically populated as text, media type as unmediated, and carrier type as volume. And as you can see on the right here, the Marva profiles include metadata for both work and instance. To contrast the profiles in Marva, Sinopia has resource templates. The templates are not built in, they're created by the user, or the user can choose a template that was created by somebody else. Relationship models are broken up by templates in Sinopia. So for example, in Marva, as we saw, the work and instance were both included in the profile. In Sinopia, there's one template for each, and the user must link them together through properties in the template. This is an important distinction because having to work with two templates is less consistent with current cataloging practices. Being able to fill out one form to populate the metadata is much less cumbersome and more user-friendly. That being said, Sinopia has some really effective functionality when it comes to building templates. First, it's ontology agnostic. Template creators can use properties from any linked data ontology. Templates can also have mix and match properties from various ontologies. And the most useful functionalities, in my opinion, that Sinopia resource templates allow for are customizable labels, making it easy to add understandable language for users to populate the form, and also the ability to add remarks, which can tell the user how to add values to the field, if there are specific rules that should be used, and it can include a link out to official documentation, such as PCC policy statements. Utilizing these two functions of the templates in a metadata editor have the potential to make catalogers transition to linked data much easier by using understandable language and immediate access to directions without having to search through a massive documentation. The other important functionality of Marva and Sinopia as linked data editors is linked data service querying and auto-completing. When you type a term into the Marva editor, it attempts to autocomplete and shows a list of possible options within the vocabulary based on the string that you started to type. The cataloger can then select the appropriate authorized heading and add it to their record. And not only will Marva populate the string, it also populates the URI. This functionality makes cataloging more efficient, though as you might be able to see in the picture, when I tried to add Abraham Lincoln as a creator, the editor wasn't able to load the data, and I wasn't able to load Abraham Lincoln, the specific one that I was looking for, to the form because of this. Other headings did seem to work though, so it seems like a glitch with this particular heading. Sinopia works similarly in that you can look up headings based on the string you type in. However, because it's not auto-completing, you sometimes have to get pretty close to the right heading before you can filter out headings that you don't want. You can hopefully see in the screenshot that I had to type in the birth dates to get close enough to the heading I was looking for. In general, though, being able to query other linked data services and populate our metadata with both strings and URIs directly from the form makes using a metadata editor much easier for catalogers while incorporating linked data functionality into the editor.
All right. Then how can Alma support cataloging and metadata librarians with a linked data editor? So previously, we discussed what Alma has and what it does not have. Alma has a metadata editor, template feature, and a system that connects linked data sources with the metadata editor. However, it does not have a mechanism for sharing output data with others. It has some, but it is not that easy to use, and that is usually for institution by institution, not with a community as a whole. And it does not work with the triple data, and it does not assign URIs for resources that could be created from the linked data editor yet. And we also have discussed how two notable linked data editors work. Sinopia allows the use of various ontologies as input and output formats in addition to BIBFRAME and MARC. This means that whatever is input can also be output in the desired format. MARPA only supports BIBFRAME as input and output format. And both editors use available linked data sources for entity matchings for appropriate properties. Based on our findings and available editors and findings of available editors and what Alma currently supports, we propose that the Alma linked data editor could incorporate the following functional requirements. We could have one simple editor with clear and easy to understandable labels and provide a set of templates for different resource types and built-in mappings for various outputs such as MARC, BIBFRAME, and different representation formats, as well as other ontologies, and the flexibility to add additional templates or modify existing templates and the mappings for other outputs, and autocomplete and the lookup functions for linked data sources. These functional requirements facilitate with what Alma currently has in its system and do not require users to know all the ontology terms. In other words, users are provided with as much information and functions as possible from the beginning as a default. And anything that is needed for each institution, special collections, and the project can be added additionally to the linked data editor. So let's make the system work harder so that everyone benefits from it rather than the other way around. So this is what Alma linked data editor may look like. Alma's template feature can be used to provide two sets of templates, one for work and instance level templates, and the other for different resource types, such as monographs, serials, maps, etc. Additional templates for different types of resources or project can be added locally or shared with the community so everyone can use it. The default Alma linked data editor should be ontology agnostic and use simple, user-friendly, and plain language labels. Alma has default mappings and transformations to various ontologies, including BIBFRAME and MARC. So it can generate whatever output the user and the system prefers to use. Another commonly used schema and ontologies can be identified and added as additional default output as well. The Alma editor will use linked data sources, various linked data sources for different entities as well. It can be challenging and difficult to plan and train on BIBFRAME and linked data and other ontologies that are used in the library domain. Instead of training on difficult concepts and different ontologies, cataloging and metadata professionals can see the relationships between the simple input and various outputs and understanding how the simple and easy to understand labels can be translated into properties in different ontologies, as Heather mentioned in her presentation. And we all need to understand how linked data can improve user experiences and overall data management. Again, the transition to linked data would be challenging and very, very difficult. And we are back to these questions we shared at the beginning of this presentation. We understand that there are many other additional questions surrounding this topic, and various working groups and colleagues are actively seeking answers. As the library system is integral to all library services, such as cataloging, acquisitions, inventory management, and discovery, and so on. We hope that everyone, especially those involved in the ILS development, will actively engage in these discussions and efforts to ensure that the system works effectively for everyone with the linked data. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, MJ and Trisha and Greta. That was great. Thank you. Have time for questions now. And there's one in there. I believe this one came up during Heather's presentation. So Heather, I will turn it over to you. Do you have to configure Alma to show the BIBFRAME data? I used to be able to access it, but the 3 dots are no longer there for the BIBFRAME tab.
As far as I know, you shouldn't have to configure it to show the linked data. I mean, for us, it was something that appeared for us. If I can maybe just share my screen again. I've brought up the Fighting Newfoundlander record there. So it's these three dots for more actions from the brief record view. And as you go down, linked data is here near the bottom. And you can see the various linked data that's available. And then to see the BIBFRAME view, you actually click on the title and you get to this record view screen where you can view the MARC record. And then up at the top is this BIBFRAME tab where you can come over. And as a reminder, what I always think is interesting is this generation date that it's showing that it was literally just generated. So as soon as so that's 1749. So you go to the MARC view and back to the BIBFRAME view. And it's 1749. I think this may be a bit further along, but it creates it on the fly. So hopefully that answered your question, Leslie.
Great, thank you. So you can't view it if you have a MARC editing record, right? Oh, go ahead, Laura.
It's possible there's a setting somewhere that got changed in your system. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility that it was an accidental configuration change, but ask your systems people to submit a ticket with Ex Libris to ask why this happened and see if you can get it back. That's the best answer I think we have now, unless there's another panelist that's a back-end systems expert that just happens to know. It should be there.
Thank you, Laura.
There are configurations you can turn on for other things. That linked data display with the 3 little dots, there is a system administrator configuration for enabling that. So the person needs to talk to their systems department.
Great, thank you. Other questions? I'll start with one. This is for Sai and Lee. In terms of your work with Wikidata, I understand I think you had said that part of the reason you decided to create the entities in Wikidata is because of it's a lower sort of entry point. could you talk a little, could you talk a little bit more about the pros and cons of Wikidata versus other sorts of maybe authority areas? And if you've expanded, do you see yourselves like moving into doing more and more Wikidata for this sort of thing rather than maybe traditional library stuff? Or I guess I would just be curious about your approach to that.
Okay, I can say something. I think the biggest advantage of Wikidata is no barrier. Like libraries can just, create a record right away. But but the NACO authority record, I mean, it's just difficult to create one, and you needed to find the person who's working on the funnel, and then they needed to review it, and they need to have time to review it, and it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes a while. We have a very friendly NACO coordinator in the past, so I was fortunate to be able to add a few records, but normally it's not that easy to contribute the records or search records to NACO in my knowledge. Some people might be, it might be easy for some people. But the Wikidata, we have like all the freedom to do whatever we want. And besides the Wikidata, it's very easy to use, and it's not as complicated as mark data, the format, and Wikidata is very flexible too. And another big advantage is that Wikidata can do wonderful visualizations. You can do query, and you can present your data in a very interesting and a meaningful way. While the LC linked data service right now cannot do those kind of visualization, I think. And right now, still Alma is on the way to develop some kind of visualization, but Wikidata already has on those, and Wikidata has an active community, and it's also multilingual. So I just think Wikidata is easy to use, and I kind of think like the library community can use Wikidata, incorporate with the library community has been actively actually trying to incorporate linked data or Wikidata into the library records or into our workflow somehow. I think maybe Library Congress do something too. They have this Wikidata like prototype, like they have this pilot projects and all that. So I believe library community will utilize Wikidata in some way in the future, and will be more collaborations. And I hope.
I also think for our friends outside of the library community, so our faculty researchers and their graduate students who are interested in linked open data, that it's like I said, it's a low barrier, and it's something that people can get used to and use right away. So it helps to broaden the field, so that then we can also bring them into the library.
Yes, the graduate students actually can create Wikidata for the people in the collection. I mean, thinking about the graduate students contributing NACO records is just too difficult.
Great, thank you. I see Tammy Morris has her hand up. I don't know if we can unmute you, Tammy, or if you can unmute yourself. You could just ask.
I think maybe need me to do it. Is Tammy has hand up?
She did have her hand up.
I don't see.
That was a mistake, Tammy. That's okay.
Oh, it's accident.
That's okay. If other people do want to chime in, you can put your hand up. Laura, did you have a question?
Me?
Yeah. Oh, you can put your video on. So.
Oh, sorry, I turned it off, but we did have an answer on the person who couldn't see the BIBFRAME view in the metadata editor, and she was helped by the presentation to find it. So that's good news. And someone else had suggested it could be individual roles and permissions, but I think I haven't encountered many people who are not able to get that view. I will say something about the when you go to the three little dots and you have a linked data view, because I believe there was a critique of that, not including everything in the presentation, in the second presentation. That, yes, that's an area where I think we've inquired in, and that is something right now that's hard coded, that selection of which fields display and the sort of the simple linked data view. So that's something maybe for future conversation with Ex Libris about. It's sounding like there's a lot of support for customers being able to configure everything about linked data to accommodate not only issues like their local MARC records and fields needing to be mapped in a certain way, but choice of vocabularies and a choice of what gets mapped or doesn't get mapped from one format to another. So that is the message we can carry forward.
For sure. Thanks. There's another question. I realize we're running short on time, but and this might be for all of the presenters today. When we activate the integration of linked data publishing profiles, what benefits or effects are we getting? And there might be a question, and are our catalog records published onto the web, ? And there might be a question there of like, what benefits are we getting today versus what benefits might we get in the future?
Since our presentation mentioned the linked data publishing profile, I'll say a little bit. I don't have too much experience with this, but we try to experiment with it, but it involves the consortium. So we were not able to actually activate it because people are worried about it. They don't know what will happen, they just worry about it. But based on what I learned from my Wikidata group members, like I chatted with Greta and some other people in our Wikidata group, like the publishing profile, not necessarily publishing data to the web. Actually, it allows you to export records like in like BIBFRAME format and other formats. You can export a data set or like a record or a set of records, I think. And then you can use that for other like for Xenopia testing or other like a linked data environment just for editing, not necessarily publishing the data to the web. And we haven't activated because, as I said, we don't have the rights. The library, my supervisor doesn't have the rights either. So we needed to, this consortium needed to be convinced that it is okay, it is safe to activate it. So we're not there yet. And some other people can add more in terms of what will happen if we activate the publishing profile, please. Greta, do you want to add anything? Since you activated it.
Yeah, actually, we're about the time, so I think you covered the major the major point.
Thanks. Oh, MJ, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I have a question for the Wikidata thing. So we are working on the digital collections, and we are actually developing our own entity, our own agent and agent authority system. And all the data that we are going to have are going to push into Wikidata. One of the concerns that we have as a general is those names do not have any other information other than name and association, because those are our institution, and the contact information. So are we all comfortable of doing it? And whether how are you going to fill how did you fill those additional information for your entities published to Wikidata is I'm very curious about here that. So how many different properties that did you use for Wikidata for your names in your project?
You mean you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. I'm sorry.
You're asking like how many different
Properties of
Properties.
properties and classes for the
we use
Wikidata do you use?
for people or for
Yeah,
space?
for the people.
Oh, the people, there are lots of properties, like 20, 30 properties. We
Okay.
have kind of like not like a finalized model, so it can include all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's like a template, you know, like relationships, like father, mother, like siblings, and like sister, all kinds of information, like the relationships, and all kinds like residence and the property, and like born year and death year, and like grave, like house, and belong to which collection. It can have lots of properties, you know, name, like other names. Yeah, it can have like the common properties, common like fields authority records would have. Also, like it can add the sources, like each property, some of the properties actually requires you to add a source. So you needed to identify, you know, where did you get this information? Yeah. Yeah, the best advantage is that it can show relationships. Yeah, relationships. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And if there are other questions, Laura, I see your hands up, but we're 3 minutes over time, and I want to make sure we wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I believe we have a recording, and yes, if people have follow-up questions, for right now, you can send them to, I don't know if we have a document, so you can send them to how about me or Jali, since you probably have one of our emails, and we'll make sure that it gets to the correct presenter and answered. Jali, do you want to say anything else? Thank you all.
Yes, so thank you to the presenters and the wonderful presentations, and also thank you for people who are attending. And well, we're very happy to be able to provide those opportunity to do the information sharing, and also some deep thinking what we are looking for as a community in terms of transition to linked data. So when at the end of meeting, we will send in the recording out. And if you have further questions, feel free to email me or Catherine, and we will forward to presenters as appropriate. So again, thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule. And I hope everyone have a great rest of week and the rest of the day. Yes, the PowerPoint slides will be shared as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.